Alright, welcome back everybody to the Bad MMA Math Breakdown, and fuck it, we are doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to be breaking down the very first Bellator PFL card of the year at the end of fucking February. They clearly saw my video and took my very good advice. Usually I do the prelims on cards as well, but to be honest, there are only so many valuable minutes we get on this planet, and I'm wasting enough of them here covering this bog of a card. Before I get into the meat on this shabby bone, I do need to mention that boxer Clarissa Shields is buried on the undercard, coming up against a girl that's 1-2, that has obviously never wrestled a day in her life. Does anyone smell another Petrozelli and Kimbo Slice cock up on the horizon? We can only hope. I hate that girl in a manner that only Pena can better. Hell, it's pretty close. Anyway, this card has slowly and rather predictably crumbled to dust over the last few weeks. But for the 10 people that are likely to watch this foul-smelling piece of shit, there are 1 or 2 that actually might be worth a gander. Let's talk about PFL, Seize the Throne, taking place this Saturday. There, I just doubled your pay-per-view sales with my 50 views on this one. You're welcome. Alright, so first fight on the card is AJ McKee versus Clay Collard. This fight is actually fine, I guess. Probably deserves to be a little bit further up the card, especially on this one, which means nothing. I'm just going to address the elephant in the room immediately, though. AJ McKee should probably be fighting Aubin Mercier. But why do that fight when we can put in the guy that Mercier just beat up a few months ago instead? Seize the bog, motherfuckers. This one is going to be a theme of the card, so just prepare yourselves. Anyway, we'll talk about Clay Collard first. You know, he's decent. He's a good boxer. The takedown defense is not terrible. And I'm trying here. He's hard as nails. AJ McKee, on the other hand, is very well-rounded. Seemed to have his I'm him moment when he sparked out Pitbull a few years ago. And it looked like he was headed to the moon. However, a few underwhelming wins and a reverse loss to the same man has dimmed his star significantly since then. McGee could actually hang in there, though, in the UFC, whereas Collard would pretty much be chicken fodder. So this is where we are. McGee has a terrible habit, though, of making things close. So expect this one to go 3 rounds and McGee to get probably an iffy decision. They do not want McGee losing this one. He's one of the only potential stars they have. This, though, is one of the better matchups on the card, which, as you're about to see, is significant. By the way, I think this one should probably be the one going 5 rounds, not the next one we're about to discuss. So yeah, I'm going to say McGee decision. Alright, next one up, we've got Yoel Romero versus Thiago Santos. This is a great fight if it was taking place in 2015. So we've got a 40-year-old Santos versus a 46-year-old Romero. Although, let's be honest, Yoel was made in some kind of underground Cuban lab, so his age might be a little bit misleading. This is the PFL's big marquee card to announce themselves. I feel like I need to point that out again. Anyway, this one is going to be dog shit, and here's why. Neither one of these men is overly aggressive these days, and yet somehow, someone thought it was a good idea to make this a 5-rounder, so they have more time to effectively eye-fuck each other. If this fight goes 25 minutes, they are going to spend about 20 of them staring at each other and fainting. I ultimately see this contest going one of 2 ways, though. Either Romero's going to catch Santos and spark him out, or Santos kicks and jabs at range and point fights to a decision. Guess which one I'm going with? Romero will throw 3 heavy, massive swings around and then get tapped for the majority of it and probably use the decision. I want to be wrong. I hope I am. What a fucking waste of time this one is going to be, though. Floater of the main card, in my opinion. All right, now we've got a heavyweight fight between Vadim Nemkov and CAPPELOZZA. We're not even halfway through the card, and I don't even know if I can do this, boys. Fuck me. And if you look at some of my PFL videos, I've really tried to defend these mongoloids. They're really making it impossible. All right, this one really summarizes how donkey-brained this organization is, and the hope for any competition for the UFC is effectively lost. And you can argue that this is actually one of the better fights on the card. So, we have Bellator's light heavyweight champion Nemkov fighting a man at heavyweight that is coming off a loss in the preliminary rounds of their heavyweight tournament last year. Didn't even make it to the semi-final stage. I mean, whose fucking idea was this? Now, oddly, these men do have a common opponent in Yuri Prohaska. So, you know, that's mildly amusing. They both lost to him, of course. But Nemkov was a pup at the time, so I can let that one slide. Now, the reason this matchup is so donkey-brained for PFL is because Nemkov is one of the, using the air quotes again, bigger names, and one of very few champions they have that they can argue could be among the world's best. Now, CAPPELOZZA is not a horrible fighter, but nobody knows who this guy fucking is. You know, he throws a good overhand and is pretty quick on his feet for a guy of his size. Nemkov, on the other hand, is far more technically proficient, can mix up the game really well. Now, the question in this one is, can Nemkov's skill overcome what should be a 20-pound size disparity against a guy that can pretty much crack really well? The problem is that they're selling this matchup on variables that the majority of fans that might give a card like this a chance for once are going to be completely unaware of. Now, if Nemkov gets sparked out, you have killed the hype on one of your only reputable champions on a guy that nobody cares about. Loss for the company. If Nemkov wins, most people are going to think that you just fed him another can. Nothing gained for the company there. So what's the actual point? I'm going to take Nemkov to outskill him and win a decision, by the way, but this matchup is so fucking stupid. Alright, fourth fight on the card, we've got Jason Jackson versus Ray Cooper III. This might be the one that pisses me off the most, to be honest. I'm going to get the positives out of the way first. I think Jason Jackson is an elite welterweight and one of the most well-rounded fighters, not just on the roster, I would argue in the entire sport. I must confess, I do have a little bit of a man crush on this dude. His striking's really diverse and elite. He has aggressive grappling, can ground and pound effectively, and will remove a limb if you give him even the slightest opening. Take the time to have a look at my PFL versus UFC Champions video at the end to scope out exactly what I'm talking about with this man. He also fights entirely on the front foot, which I completely respect, not a defensive fighter whatsoever. I really believe that this guy would wreck most UFC welterweights on the roster. Now, we were supposed to get Magomed Karamov, PFL's two-time tournament winner, and an actual threat, and instead, you throw him in with a fat fuck that missed the middleweight limit and just got annihilated by Derek Brunson in his last fight. Again, why are you doing this? Brunson would have actually made more sense as an opponent, and that says everything. Jackson's gonna fuck this fat fuck up. Silver lining is that hopefully he makes short work of this, and we get Magomed Karamov in a fight with Jackson by the middle of the year. I'm mostly gonna tune in and watch this guy style out, and heaven forbid, if this goes wrong and they ruin one of the only good future matchups they have, I don't know what else to say about them. All right, next fight we've got a couple of featherweights going at it. So it's the consensus Bellator GOAT, Patricio Pitbull, up against the guy who just lost to the current PFL featherweight champion. Are we sensing a little bit of a theme yet? Now, I'm not going to shit on this fight too much because we were actually supposed to get Pitbull versus Pineda, but he pulled out short notice with an injury, and that was actually going to be an intriguing one. This is better than nothing, I guess, and is actually one on the card to look out for, but potentially for all the wrong reasons. Now, Pitbull has been a great champion for the organization, but we're going to have to stick to the facts here. He just got mollywopped by a bantamweight in his second to last fight, who has also lost in the meantime, and got annihilated, by the way. Then, in his last fight, he got absolutely sparked out by Suzaki over at Ryzen. I know. Who's that? To say he is on the decline would be pretty kind, and we are supposed to get jazzed about him fighting Braga, who just got TKO'd 2 months ago by the guy he was supposed to fight. Let me just remind you, this card was being billed as a champion versus champion card, and we are getting a feature fight where both men have been soundly battered in their last contests. In a way though, that's kind of where the intrigue is for this one. Having watched Pitbull in his last two, I actually think he might get slapped here. What I will say is that both fighters are fun to watch, and at the very least, this one I believe could turn out to be potentially fight of the night. Probably by default. Pitbull is the better all-round fighter, but his chin is gone, and the funny part is that he hasn't quite clocked it yet. He's old, in a legit lightweight class, and I have a weird feeling, as I said, that he's going to get bonged again. Logically, he should probably win this by decision, but if I haven't laid this on enough, thick enough already, this fight between two losers is maybe the closest on paper and potentially most likely to be fight of the night on the main card. Now, I'm not saying that Braga will win because I think he's good. I just think that Pitbull is cooked. Alright, the next fight is at welterweight between EBLEN and KASANGANAY in another pointless one. So to summarize so far for those keeping up, Bellator's light heavyweight champion is fighting a random heavyweight coming off a loss. Bellator's welterweight champion is fighting a random middleweight coming off a loss. Bellator's featherweight champion is fighting a man that just lost to the current PFL champion or counterpart. Now we have Bellator's middleweight champion fighting Bellator's light heavyweight champion at middleweight. I get the feeling here that the way that this drawing went down is they put all the names for the guys they signed up for this card and just randomly pulled them out of a moldy, wank-stained sock. It's the only way that this card makes any sense. Now, I know PFL doesn't have a middleweight division. I get that. I mean, I don't, but you know, those are the facts we have. And KASANGANAY did fight at middleweight in the UFC, where he got bounced out, by the way, after one of the most viral KOs of all time. I thought he was dead when watching that live, I swear to God. And your choice is to put him in there with probably the best middleweight in the world right now. Genuinely, I should be lost for words. Now, don't get me wrong, KASANGANAY has appeared to improve since leaving the UFC, at least on the eye test, but he's been fighting bums, so you know, has he really improved? Again, what bothers me about this fight, I don't see how this benefits anyone involved whatsoever. EBLEN's probably going to win this fight using his wrestling, and KASANGANAY is pretty tough, so it probably won't be a total cakewalk. Now, if EBLEN loses somehow, your most dominant champion just lost to a guy that we all thought was dead after getting leaping, spinning back kicked by a guy now fighting at welterweight and isn't even ranked in the UFC. If he doesn't win convincingly, his stock is going to drop as well. Even if he does win convincingly, how much does his stock actually rise? I'm going to argue barely, and you have no one else for him to fight anyway. You got no fucking middleweights. Let's not even consider the implications for this one. If your biggest champion loses to a guy that got thrown out by an organization you're trying to say you're competing with now. And you know what's fucked up? Again, this is arguably one of the best matchups on the card. I hope this is just a case of EBLEN fighting his contract down and that we see him in the UFC soon fighting actual contenders. This fight, again, is fucking stupid. Alright, now we've got a heavyweight fight between Ferreira and Ryan Bader. Now we've made it to the final fight of the evening, only to be rewarded with a main event of the most confusing card in MMA history, featuring Ryan fucking Bader. Way to make a splash, you complete fucking assholes. Why do I keep defending you? I'm going to keep this one brief because frankly my will is broken at this point. Ferreira is fucking huge. I think he's 6'7", and Bader is a natural light heavyweight. I think in this one, Bader's going to fail to take him down because, as I said, Ferreira is a giant, and that the Brazilian is just going to chin him out. To win this one, all Ferreira has to do is stay at a safe distance and wait for Bader to dive in like a fucking mongoloid. Ferreira has 11 inches of reach on him. The size of my man stick, give or take 10 inches or so. Now, Bader is 40 and is horrible to watch most of the time. And I need this to happen so that I can feel like watching this card hasn't completely wasted my fucking time. Fortunately, this card takes place before UFC Mexico City because I will watch, but I'll be ducking out just as quickly when UFC Mexico starts. Ferreira for the win. Please, God. They might actually be able to market him as a scary heavyweight champion. Alright, so this card is obviously fucking embarrassing, but I'm an MMA fan, and I will watch out of morbid curiosity. Are you tuning in to watch this? Do you have any opinions on how these fights will go? If you do, good for you. Apologies for my lack of enthusiasm here, but it is what it is. This card is just so damn strange. Anyway, thanks for watching. You really are a fan of the sport if you made it to the end of this one. Like I said, like and subscribe as always. Have a great one. Peace, and I'll see you for the reactions to both these cards over the weekend. In a bit.